Hello and welcome to Direct Approach with Wayne Moorehead, an exclusive podcast by DSN where Wayne shares candid and insightful conversations with leading corporate executives about today's evolving direct sales channel. Tune in every other Thursday for timely insights and relevant takeaways to grow and advance your business. In today's episode, Wayne is joined by Mike Green, Chief Digital Officer at Arbonne. For over 20 years, Mike has been a technology leader known for building global technology systems for direct-to-consumer companies. His ability to define and execute forward-thinking strategies and integrate emerging technology for productive outcomes has made him a sought-after information technology leader. In this episode, Mike discusses some challenges and hesitancy he believes are preventing direct selling companies from embracing innovation. And he shares some of the advancements in e-commerce that companies can begin leveraging and the importance of having an updated tech stack. Mike also talks about how companies can minimize challenges for customers while migrating to a new system, and how Arbonne is preparing for the future of AI and exploring uses in everything from customer service to shopping experiences. No matter where you are on your digital transformation journey, this interview is filled with actionable advice about how companies can prepare today for tomorrow's technology. Please help me welcome your host, Wayne Moorehead, and today's guest, Mike Green, Chief Digital Officer at Arbonne.
Hello and welcome to another episode of DSN's Direct Approach podcast. As always, I'm your host, Wayne Moorehead. And today I am very excited to be joined by somebody that has led IT and technology strategies in some of the largest direct selling companies in the channel. I am talking about none other than the CIO of Arbonne, and his most important title is a dear friend of mine, Mike Green. Mike, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, Wayne, thanks for having me on. Excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, me too. I'm really excited to dive in. Before we go too deep, though, I'd love for you to just kind of back up and take just a few minutes and share with us a little bit about the path that led you into direct selling.
Yeah, I've been in the direct selling industry now for over 20 years. So basically right out of high school, college, I started working at USANA Health Sciences, actually, in their help desk. And that's where I got started, and kind of grew up in the space. Moved up to Idaho and worked up there in Melaleuca for a while, and then headed south to Texas and Arizona, and then back into Utah, and then I guess now into California over in Arbonne. So been all over the place. Had a chance to just build a lot of great things for different companies. Had a lot of opportunity to expand a lot into a lot of different markets. So always an opportunity to, build out those markets. It's always a lot of fun too. But yeah, I've been like all over the place. I don't know, like it's been crazy. It's been a crazy journey. Not something I expected. It's not like I was growing up going like, you know what I want to do? I want to get into the direct sales industry and do IT. But I've loved it since I've been here.
Well, we're all glad that you decided to join the channel. And you're right, you've had a really interesting background path in through it, and had a chance to work with some amazing companies and the leaders in those companies. Every one of those companies that you named have incredible founders, incredible CEOs. I mentioned that I've been really excited to join you today, and super stoked that you made the time, really for a couple of reasons. One, we've touched on some technology and some IT dynamics and aspects in other conversations, but as of yet, we have not had a CIO on the program yet that's allowed us to really dig deep on a lot of these important dynamics. And that really is the second reason. A lot of the changes that were happening throughout the channel that mostly are amazingly positive are being driven by technology. It's not just technology. Technology touches on social, generational, all these other aspects. So one thing I think we're all aware of that would all admit is that in the channel, we have a pretty complex relationship with digital technology across the channel. We love it. Like on one hand, it gives us amazing reach It allows us to connect and communicate with our members and our customers like never before. We're able to deliver these incredible brand experiences that we weren't able to deliver prior to some of these, the introduction of some of these technologies. But on the other hand, if we're honest with ourselves, some of our most challenging brand and customer experiences are on the digital technology side. Could be purchasing a product, could be, enrolling as a brand promoter or a member. Why is this? I'm curious. I know this is kind of a big question. I'm like teeing it up with kind of the big question, but why are we getting so much of this right, and that yet in a few areas we're really challenged?
When I take a look at that, I think those expectations from those larger retailers, the ones that really perfected that e-commerce experience, I think the MLMs and the consumers, that expectation has been drawn up to that level. And we have all these conversations all the time. You go to these other different companies, like, what about Amazon? Why can't we be more like Amazon? Why can't we mirror their experience and have like these one-click moments? And then you take a step back a little bit too, and like Amazon's just like this shopping transactional platform, and network marketing or MLM space, that's like we're creating experiences and building a community and selling and sharing products. And I think we try and get both of those things at the same time, or we want both. We want the super easy, quick experience and checkout, but we also want to build community and draw this person in, and that technology that we keep trying to find that silver bullet for, to merge those two experiences together with just the experiences. I think one of the most challenging things that I see lots of companies struggling with, just trying to figure out, like, how do we get that middle tier to work. And we just see this kind of uprising of consumers just wanting that, and executive teams struggling to meet those demands. I think you see a lot too on the technology side. We tend to be the bottleneck too, right? You hear all the time, we're like 5 years behind the space. We don't have to be 5 years behind, but I think some of our traditional processes have put us 5 years behind. We've made some conscious decisions in that.
So you said a lot there. I was kind of taking some notes here that I want to circle back on. So one is kind of that hesitancy. So a little bit, I think we are guilty of, if it's not broke, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so we felt for a long time, because the focus, which we'll get into a little bit later, was on the back end. As long as our distributors can shop and manage their businesses effectively, like, we're good. We're kind of good with everything else. That's where we're going to put all of our energy and resources into. Why is there a hesitancy now? And again, I have a couple strong opinions here, but why is there a hesitancy now to really dig in and rethink those legacy backend systems?
I think they're a pain. I think one of the things when you talk to those IT teams, especially, those MLMs that grew up in the 90s that didn't have any kind of modern technology, they're sitting on these just heavy platforms that have been customized and built and are just so big that they can't even, in some cases, move their tech stack to something modern without a significant amount of time and effort and investment. So I think that's one hesitation in there. I think the other hesitation is probably what you said, like, what got us here is what got us here. Let's just keep rerunning the same playbook. And even though the consumer expectations have just changed for their experiences.
Absolutely. You talked about the expectations that Amazon has set, and this is something that has been impacting all of us in direct selling, in D2C, really throughout, any sales channel. Amazon has set these incredible expectations around trust, around ease of purchase, and these have kind of become the table stakes. And so even though we internally can say, hey, they're in a different business than we are, this is a different channel, this is a people-to-people business, that expectation is out there, that things need to be simple, fast, frictionless with our purchasing. And so that is kind of the elephant in the room a little bit, that we do need to tackle and understand that competition has changed. Channels aren't as siloed as they used to be. Now they're blending and bleeding together. And so we are being measured to these other e-commerce experiences. And so inevitably, we are going to need to really kind of help set and meet those expectations of the consumer, or we will be left behind. And we talked a little bit, or I guess you kind of mentioned the, kind of the trope that we're always 5 years behind kind of other companies. really around that hesitancy, but how do we then kind of flip that and start really pushing the envelope and getting more ahead on some of these core technologies around e-commerce, around subscription, around affiliate? How do we start pushing to be more ahead instead of lagging behind?
Yeah, I think from a technology perspective, the platforms that many of us are on are the biggest limiter that prevents us from getting more of these services and more of these expectations. There haven't been a lot of great just kind of MLM platforms that had enough flexibility to allow us to bolt those items on. I think that there are a couple of them out there as the space is consolidated quite a bit, and they've been modernizing their tech stack. I think that's the type of technology, that kind of headless technology, is preventing some of these companies from moving. I know a lot of the companies I worked at, they just have these heavy systems, or the integration to other systems because they're one-offs. They're not industry outside of the channel MLM, but they're not industry standard platforms that we have to integrate to. So when we talk about the commission engine, these larger companies that we're integrating with are like, oh, who are they? What do they look like? And it slows that transformation down because we aren't, in line with the rest of the technology in the e-commerce space. And that speed to market and the ability to add and bolt things on to our platforms. I'm sure most CEOs are like, I would love to be able to do X, live shopping or whatever. And on most of these platforms, I suspect the IT teams are coming back saying like, it's going to be 3 to 6 months at least. And we got to get this integrated. We got to get all these advanced business rules down. And it's complicated, and it just slows them down. So you see the technology maturing in the e-commerce space and the standard, and we're struggling to get all of our technology in a row so we can move faster.
Yeah, you're right. It's not just up to us and the systems and platforms that we build internally. We're really reliant on third-party systems and backend, our commissioning engines, our back offices, and those partners that are out there really have made large strides in the last couple of years. You mentioned the consolidation. There has and continue to be a lot of consolidation where the decision is going to get a lot less complex with who to go with, kind of on the back end. We have to have those commissioning engine and back offices, but they have made strides. Can you talk a little bit about some of the kind of updates and advancements and kind of that, that middle tier that allows some of these e-commerce platforms and tools to be plugged in?
Yeah, I think that the goal, and I'm sure a lot of the IT CIOs out there are looking at these headless platforms to try and get ahead of this build to be able to integrate more quickly. Headless platforms, we're seeing a lot more of them, connecting them to a commission engine. You think about the level of scale. If I have an IT department of 20 developers, but I bring in a headless platform, and now I have a huge community of developers, building connections to enterprise platforms. Now it's like, I have 100,000 developers building stuff for me. So those integrations become significantly easier. We start to abstract that extra MLM complication, and we leave it behind at the OMS and at the commission engine, and we let the order management system connect into all those plugins. And we're starting to see that. I like, we were looking at a bunch of different mobile apps, and we're looking at some of the things that some of the other companies are doing from a technology perspective. Those types of innovation is going to help move our industry forward to get us a little bit closer to the e-commerce space. I think the other companies that are kind of doubling down on the old tech or just trying to like make the old stuff work better. I think they're going to miss out because they just can't scale. You cannot beat out that many developers or people working against what your own teams can produce.
Absolutely. For some of the listeners, will you just describe a little bit what you mean or clearly define headless platform, just so when they go back to their IT, their CIO, they can have some of these conversations as well?
Yeah. So like a headless platform, in my opinion, is a platform where the functions have been segregated from the UI or the look and feel of the application. So, a headless or commerce engine might have order management where it can do the order calculation, it can calculate the tax, it can make sure that everything is calculated in the order and the quantity. But what that looks like and how you interface with that engine is up to the teams to build. And I think it gives that nice flexibility of not being locked into a heavy platform, having the flexibility of using the components that you want to use in a headless platform. Like maybe you aren't going to use the auto ship platform because you have something else, or maybe because your headless platform, you've already got a loyalty platform and you just want to connect it to your order management system. That kind of Lego looking system is probably the best way to think about it. And then what you do with those Legos and the house that you build, that's totally up to you on how you want it to look. And I think MLMs need that flexibility, right? We want to be able to dress up the front end. We want to be able to control the experience. And we have a little bit of a one-off experience through the enrollment process than we do through a normal shopping experience. So we need that level of control. So having that Lego brick, if you will, approach to components in your system to pick and choose what you want to use is a major advantage, because you may not want everything, you may not use everything, and you may find other systems that are better than what you have. And all you really want to do is just calculate order calc, make sure that everything is calculated correctly.
Yeah, huge flexibility, not just on selection and ability, but as far as upgrading going forward. You're able to just grab kind of the next iteration, the next tool off the shelf, and really kind of plug it right in.
To your point, keeps it evergreen, right? And you have an opportunity, you're able to swap out old tech, just like those Lego blocks. As TikTok came around just 5 years ago and just dominated the social media space, and everyone was running to catch up. AI is big right now. Who knows what the ramifications are going to be, but if it's going to start shopping for us, or what those technologies are going to be. But we need those platforms to be able to go like, well, okay, I may or may not choose to use AI, but at least my platform can accept it and I can connect it easily and quickly and flexibly. And then the business can decide whether or not they want to leverage it as part of their business programs. But if the technology team is like, well, 5 to 6 months, a year, never, they don't even get the opportunity to explore the technology.
Yeah, interesting. I quickly want to put a bow kind of on the e-commerce side. You talked about this kind of UI and seamless user experience. Historically, again, consumers were kind of shuttled back and pushed through into a different platform that seemed a little bit disconnected from the front end experience. This is something you were kind of talking about. We know the rise of the consumer. We know we got to get really good at selling products, at converting customers, at converting distributors. So on the e-commerce front, so from an e-commerce platform perspective, what would you do today? So if you're giving advice to a CEO or other execs throughout the direct selling channel, again, our back ends are pretty dialed in, amazing partners, great capabilities, continuing to evolve those capabilities. How do you look at developing that really great e-commerce experience in connection with that? Do those third-party partners have the capability to provide that for us now, or do we need to go find an e-commerce platform and essentially kind of plug it in?
Well, I don't think there's a clear winner in that space yet. As far as just an e-commerce experience, I think that's exactly what all the CDOs and CMOs are working on right now, trying to figure out how to get that experience to go through. You see a lot of different versions of that experience happening. And we've watched some of the companies in our channel start to shift towards affiliate marketing or focus a little bit more on customer acquisition. And then you get into that experience and you see one of two things. Either they've obfuscated a lot of the business opportunity and they put it off into a corner somewhere, and really focused on the customer, or they still leave this two-door approach where they're like, hey, here's the IC, or here's the distributor approach, and here's the customer approach. Which door do you want to go in? And then somehow the customer's got to figure out which door to get through and the material in front of it.
Which ultimately we don't want. It is the challenge. We want the customer to have as few decisions to be made as possible. Each decision is a friction point. It's an opportunity for them to bounce and leave and go somewhere else. So the more we can provide a tailored experience based on their intention, based on previous interactions or transactions, and provide that bespoke experience, the better off we are going to be. Those two-door options are just really clunky and ultimately end up, I think, confusing the consumer. It's the famous book, The Paradox of Choice. So again, less friction, better.
Yeah, and try to get through that process. I'm sure without some help or some understanding or some significant amount of marketing on the front end or really clear pathing, or you see some of them trying to like, well, we'll give you a quiz or something at the beginning of the experience to try and help you define your path.
Yeah.
And you see people just bombing out of that, like, well, I just want to shop, or I just want to like, why do I need a quiz to tell me what I want to do on the website?
Yeah. If I want to drill deeper and explore more, yes, I would love a quiz. But, we were sitting here talking about the expectation that, Amazon is set with one-click buying. I don't want 7 or a dozen clicks through a quiz, helping to figure me out a little bit more. Again, I'm okay with that farther in the customer journey, my experience with a product or a company, but I don't want that many clicks up front for sure.
Yeah.
So you mentioned AI. So lots to talk about AI and ChatGPT. You mentioned making sure that we have flexible systems that would allow for this. What can we be doing today to either prepare or, even initially leveraging some of this technology that we know is going to be absolutely pervasive throughout every aspect of our lives?
Yeah, I think it's getting out there and starting to explore what the technology can do and start thinking about what those use cases would look like. I was experimenting with AI the other day and trying to use AI to simulate a natural sounding voice and animate an avatar, because is a use case of video avatars being able to do customer service and being able to have that kind of natural conversation. I think that playing with the technology to try and flesh out what those use cases are going to be are key. And if you're not playing around with that technology even a little bit, you're going to miss out on some of the optimization it can bring. And you see people are already trying to hook up the AI to like, well, let's have it write all the product detail descriptions for us. I don't need a marketing team to write all of these to describe a black spatula. Pretty generic, but it's such a painstaking process. But connecting an AI to like write all these product detail descriptions and I'll edit and view it in 15 minutes instead of spending, 5 copywriters writing it for however much time it takes. I think I'm just trying to think through all the different use cases. The other day I was like, I asked the AI to put together a meal plan for me and a 7-day workout for a male that's in 40, that's relatively in great shape. And then I asked in the same sentence to create a shopping list for me and then organize that shopping list by section at Target so I could find all those products. And as I was thinking through the use case, I'm like, man, what if the AI was shopping for putting together a meal plan or something like that, and then said, yeah, and here are the appropriate products for the company channel, right? Here's the protein you want from this company, or and getting those AIs to create more of that personalized experience for you without feeling too intrusive, but giving you that information that you need right away. I think there's just so many use cases, but I don't even think we scratched the surface of what it can do for us.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think I've been thinking about this a lot. A lot of the articles and podcasts that I dig into are kind of wrestling with these same questions right now. Obviously, customer service is going to be one of probably the initial ones where it can really help and allow us to scale quickly. Another one, since you took a nice swipe at marketing and some of the activities in marketing, like writing product copy. One of the articles I was just reading, they were talking about how people are using it to do some really basic coding. Like they just tell it, hey, give me a landing page that does A, B, and C, and it comes. Yes, they need some tweaking, but it's coming for all of us. So it's going to be impacting all of our departments, all of the functions that we're all involved in, and it goes far beyond just IT. I think because of that, so we all need to get really familiar on how we can be utilizing, and I'm excited to see how it is going to continue to impact our businesses for sure. So super big question: buy versus build. So what's your philosophy generally, as the head of a technology organization? Do you look at saying, hey, let's keep things as centralized and internal and bespoke as possible? Are you looking broader? How can we bring in as much? And how has that changed over the years for you?
Yeah, so back when I first started my career, I was really big, like, build it, own it, control all the aspects of it. Because, at the time, 15 years ago too, the systems weren't mature. Amazon Cloud didn't exist. So your options really were to build it on-prem, grow it, and take care of it. The overhead to do that is just crazy. Fast forward to 2023, I'm all about buying services that are commoditized, order management, commissions. I don't want to build a commission engine. I don't want to build a order management system. I don't want to build a loyalty program. I don't want to build those components. I want to leverage those components to for the business. Anything that I would consider building would be things that would be considered intellectual property to the company, things that we would want to keep tight, things that we would differentiate us in the market space differently than others. I think those are the things that you would buy, but the rest of it, we should be in maintenance mode. I think as a whole, those services, there's enough services and economies of scale that we should be paying a monthly fee and be able to scale up and down with our services. From a cost model perspective, you want to be able to scale. Our businesses are so volatile sometimes and up and down that you need to be able to have that flexibility. You don't want to carry an IT department and have it eat up 20% of your operational income because you've got this heavy weighted platform systems that you pay maintenance on that you have to take care of and care and feeding because you built it, and there's no one else you can go to. There's no one else to save you except your own team when they run into a problem, and you hope that they can save it. So getting more experts, and I think it's a scaling issue again. You can't beat the number of people that are supporting a big platform compared to the number of people in your organization. If you're on a Salesforce or a SAP or Oracle or some, there's lots of partners, lots of people to help you with that, lots of experts in the space. You just can't get the same support and help when you're building it yourself.
I agree. I love leveraging other people's expertise, something that they've totally either innovated or completely dialed in. I don't want to go, figure out the latest and greatest subscription platform when someone else has, or a dozen people already have. I'd rather go leverage that and let them continue to innovate and just draft off of that. So that's the way I look at it from kind of the marketing perspective. So based on that approach, where the pendulum's definitely swung more to buy, leverage the resources of third-party apps, platforms, partners, how should that impact today's IT organization? So let's say hypothetically you're creating an IT organization from scratch, no bureaucracy, no politics, no constraints. How would you set it up today?
To learn even more about what's trending in tech, affiliate models, recent acquisitions, and disruptive opportunities in the channel, we invite you to join 400 of your peers for the spring DSN events, April 18th through the 20th at the Omni Frisco Hotel in Frisco, Texas. Register today at dsu2023.com and to learn from more than 30 of today's top executive leaders from some of the brightest brands across the channel, including a Tech Innovations and Solutions panel with a seasoned group of technology-focused supplier companies serving the direct selling channel. You'll learn priceless insights on new and developing trends impacting the channel right now and how you can best prepare to stay ahead of this fast-moving and often confusing tech train. The events kick off with the 14th Annual DSN Global Celebration and Awards event, followed by DSU, a direct selling 2-day masterclass with a TED-style show flow featuring speakers from companies like Mary Kay, Market America, LifeWave, Prove It, Faster Way to Fat Loss, Red Aspen, Zingular, USANA, Pharmacy, Rodan and Fields, Plexus, Legal Shield, Promptings, Amare Global, PM International, and more. Plus, all registered DSU attendees are invited to attend an exclusive bonus digital selling workshop on Wednesday, April 19th, following general session for an exclusive content and case study insights on tiered affiliate compensation programs. Plus, presentations from Amanda Tress, founder and CEO of Faster Way to Fat Loss, and Christina Helwig, SVP of Sales and Marketing at Advocare. DSU and the workshop are in-person only and free to all active corporate direct selling executives. Register today to reserve your seat at dsu2023.com. Now, a word from our sponsor. DSN is honored to be supported by industry suppliers that partner with companies across the channel to help enhance, streamline, and grow their businesses. This episode is sponsored by Exego. Exego was started by a team of experts that shared a single vision: to overturn the archaic, restrictive model of housing data and create an entirely new kind of platform from the ground up. From your first dollar to your billionth and beyond, Exego's platform scales in lockstep with your global growth, aspirations, and vision. With clients in 120 countries, supporting 40 currencies and 30 languages, plus over 200 open APIs and SDKs, they empower an existing tech team to control their own best-in-class solution vision. To connect and learn more, visit exego.com. That is EXIGO.com. Now, let's get back to the interview with Mike Green, Chief Digital Officer at Arbonne.
Let's say hypothetically, you're creating an IT organization from scratch. No bureaucracy, no politics, no constraints. How would you set it up today?
Yeah, so around that space, I like, if we were starting from scratch, leveraging a lot of partners and expertise and building something from the ground up, I think you have a really small IT department. Honestly, you have 5 or 6 experts in that space. Maybe you have a really strong infrastructure operations person. You have a really strong solution architect that understands the platforms. Minimal high-end tech. Maybe you pay them in that kind of 75th percentile to keep them at that high echelon. And that's all you need. And after that, you're in contract management and partner management. And you aren't staying up until midnight, whether or not the platform is going to work, because you're paying somebody else to get up in the middle of the night, patch that, and do that care and feeding. So you don't need internal staff. You just need really strong experts internally that you keep with all that in-house knowledge, and the rest of it you disperse. And if there is more need beyond that, you can start to disperse even into nearshore, offshore to expand your resources, because you still want the flexibility. But if I were to build from scratch, you'd probably get away with, even on a large enterprise on that model, maybe less than 20 people in an organization on a partner built architecture
Platform. Yeah. Wow. That is amazing. It obviously still takes a lot of people. They just don't always need to be sitting there in your building, on your team and your payroll. It is kind of leveraging all of this outside resources and expertise. What a huge shift. I think both you and I have been in organizations where the IT department has been a literal army. It was the biggest cost center, the biggest or the most number of individuals from an HR perspective, human resource. And now it's just amazing how that shifted. Again, the same thing can happen and is happening in marketing with outside agencies and contractors and things like that. So it's impacting, I think, multiple departments, but it is fascinating how much it is impacting IT as well. So we love our IT department. So not saying we're not all valuable. It just we may be outside partners or versus inside partners, the same as it is in marketing going forward. Really interesting.
And I think even 10 years ago, you couldn't have done that. Even 5 years, you would have been struggled for the platforms to mature. Mm-hmm. But I think the technology is so commoditized now and so service oriented that you can just connect things now. You don't need to build anything. It's easier. The technology is just matured to a point, even that low code stuff that's going around now that's eating up all the advanced code that allows just average people to start building apps and connect platforms together. You don't need that same level of expertise that you used to either.
Incredible. You mentioned a couple of them, and we can move on if you already mentioned all of them, but I just wanted to come back and clarify, what are the functions from an IT perspective that you would absolutely keep in-house versus outsource or offshore?
So from a solution architecture perspective, I keep solution architects to understand the entire enterprise architecture, how we have them connected, and the reasons why we connected them. I would keep some level of security internal, but still outsource the the sock and the knock out there. I would probably keep just very like really light, a little bit of development, a little bit of architecture, a little bit of infrastructure and operations. You're going to have some kind of internal help desk because that's really hard to do remote or completely outsourced, but there's services out there that you could do that. You really would just want a bunch of engineers, smart people, and you can get away with like a really light management staff because your staff wouldn't be that big.
Gotcha. Interesting. Thank you for that. Thanks for the clarity. So let's talk a little bit about the relationship between marketing and IT. Again, this is another one of those areas where there used to be historically some inherent tension of, marketing wants to go do A, B, and C tomorrow. We want to provide this customer experience. IT was the rational one saying, look, it's going to take this much time. This is the resources. And so there was some conflict or some friction between the two organizations. And I've seen definitely over the last, call it 4 or 5 years, they're working way more together. They're even blending together. A lot of these like the technology resources, developers are even starting to sit more. Certain functions and for certain reasons are sitting more on the marketing side for conversion rate optimization, to be, updating the front end of a site moment by moment based on what they're seeing, based on customer data, customer transactions, coding of ads and things like that. So it's really interesting. And I love that these two groups are really coming together. And I think that speaks a lot for what it's going to look like 5 years from now. Can you share some of your thoughts on kind of today's relationship with IT and marketing versus 5 years ago, and where you see it going forward?
I think it's the rise of that chief digital officer, right? That blending of the marketing officer and the information officer. You get a lot more, like, marketing is so into the technology space now, and the technology teams that were just resting on the technology had to evolve. We had to get more involved, had to be better understanding of the customer journeys, and be better marketers, because the technology is essentially forcing us to understand it and participate in it. And so now you start to run into some of these organizations where you're like, okay, Wade, you and I are together. Which one of us owns the customer journey now? Like, do you own it to the point that gets to the website, and that's the marketing, the branding, the look and feel? Or are you and I having a conversation now about how many clicks? What does the accordion look like on the checkout? How many steps are we going to take? And there's this unclear, in some cases undefined, like, because our roles have just started to roll right over each other, because the website is such a key platform that we use to funnel everything in. Everyone's got eyes on it, and I think those two roles have to work together.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know how you do it otherwise.
No, and full disclosure for the audience, you and I sat in these roles together at a company. I was CMO, you were CIO, and I loved the relationship that our two departments had with each other, and how open and collaborative that they were with each other. And I think you did an amazing job of really helping to set that culture and that tone, and really, again, kind of remove any of the us versus them that was there for so many years. And you created these teams, these pods that were all cross-functional, where it was shared responsibility, shared resources, where we had insight, really deep insight into each other's businesses and projects and initiatives. And that, for me, really led to the best working relationship that I've ever had. It's not just these marketers, but creative is blending. Engineers need to understand, and developers need to understand what creative is working and why it is and why it's not. And so I think that there's even these periodic reviews where these groups come together and say, look, over the last quarter, over the last month, over the last week, these are the assets, these are the campaigns, these are the messages that really worked the best. And so everybody has an understanding of what to do next time and how to continually really evolve and improve it. So that's something that I've really loved. So
yeah, I think it's really interesting. I actually think that it's not the departments even coming together. I think they're going to get fully meshed together, and they're going to be working on a single product, right? Where if the website's a product, or the enrollment process is a product, or whatever you want to name it, and it's not just the IT team in there, because it's the whole product team with the creative and the product marketer in there that owns that space. And you could flip some of these traditional IT product owners and managers over to that space, or you could take traditional marketers and flip them over and just own that P&L on those products and performance. Either way, but I think they just continue to blend, that they're not separate teams coming together in the future. I think it's just the web team, and they happen to have the creative and the developers and the business analysts and the data analysts all kind of contained to support it. And because those roles are just getting so the daylight between them and what we do is getting so tight. And again, it starts to come down to, even when you and I are working together, where do you own the journey and where does it end and where do I pick it up?
Completely. Yeah. Well, I completely agree with you. And especially where more and more and more, and soon it'll be most interactions with customers and distributors are and will be digital. So where is the line? So someone comes to a website, in the past, I could have argued and said, well, marketing owns the front end of the website, IT, you worry about what's on the back end of the website, but I'm not doing the developing. I'm not hosting, I'm not doing all these aspects. And so I agree, it's going to completely come together because the lines just aren't there anymore.
Yeah, and you look at what the IT departments are doing now, and a lot of them are using Agile, right? Agile's being tossed around all the time. And part of those tenets too is you start to bring in product owners and product managers too, that start to say, hey, I own this. I own the metrics, I own the look and feel, I understand the customer experience, I understand how they're using my product. And there's this like moment like, oh, but I got to go and talk to marketing too and make sure I get the branding and the look and feel from them. But we're both operating on that same product. We're trying to make it better. And the only thing that's separating us working on it together is just that weird reporting line, because the activity to support what we're trying to do is the same thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. So did we just talk ourselves out of jobs, Mike? Are we?
I think so. I think we are.
Are we on the
we
street
are antiquated.
now?
We're antiquated, and we need to evolve. Either I need to come further your way, or you need to come further my way. One or the other.
No, I totally agree. I love this merging. It just makes it more effective, again, because those lines are so blurred, and it is just one customer journey. It is just one distributor journey, and it needs to be seamless and invisible to those key stakeholders on the front end. And I'm glad that we're figuring out here more on the back end and behind the scenes. So moving into kind of looking forward now, there are companies out there. We have companies that have amazing histories, amazing legacies that have been in business for decades, some 100 years. Looking at them and their systems, their technology, their IT, where can some of these larger legacy systems, like where should they start? What are some of the most important things they need to consider or implement first in kind of, rethinking or evolving their whole digital experience and digital strategy?
Man, I would probably focus most of my time on that front end and the flexibility of that headless e-commerce engine. I think you talk about these kind of larger MLMs that are spread all over the place. They have a heavy ERP system in the background. They've probably got a commission engine that's really ingrained in a lot of systems. The ones that are in lots of countries, they've got a lot of complications in their infrastructure, but that front end door, if there hasn't been too much invested in it, and they can re-leverage their spend, I think that front end door is the most important thing. The flexibility of that order management system, the look and feel of that website, that I think that's more important, because the rest of the stuff filters through. I think you can hide a lot of sins in the back end when it's not visible to everybody else, and you can fix things behind the scenes. But that front end, I think evaluating the front end, how flexible is it? What's the time to market to get those features and functions that are there? And are your challenges the platform, or are your challenges the ability, too many prioritization, or too much ADD in the business, or is it the platform that's slowing you down? If the platform is the thing that's slowing you down, it's complicated, or it's big, or it's heavy, and it just takes too long to build, or you've got this custom thing, the time you're wasting to modernize it or get it up to speed, or someone's got a plan where like, well, we'll build this like a little data service bus and we'll connect everything together. Like, yeah, it's gonna take forever. It could take longer. Just move to an e-commerce system, something that's clean, light, maybe test it in a smaller market, work through the oddities or nuances with anons to capture your commission value, your business value, whatever those extra metrics are that we've named in the channel. And I think that's the start of the conversion, because that front entry point is where everything's going to connect. And that's where all the demand is too. That's where the consumers want to see the advancements in that front end piece. So I would focus most of my time on that e-commerce engine.
So what can we do to make that process as least disruptive for our customers and members as absolutely possible? I think all of us, I know I have been in the past scared about these transitions, or I should say worried, about these transitions from the impact on the business standpoint. So what can we do to help minimize any of the impact or even visibility to customers and members as we maybe start transitioning or implementing and getting off of some of these legacy systems, implementing these new systems?
Yeah, so going back to the technology and the platform, one of the advantages of a headless platform or a headless e-commerce platform is that we can migrate functions one at a time rather than migrating the entire platform. So you bring in a headless platform and you start to think about, okay, I'm going to move in. I think the example we're talking about for is like the order calculation. I don't have to change anything else on the website, the front end or the back end. I can bring in this component and I can start doing order calculation and just strip down the platform component by component. I think a lot of the times those transitions, which are always tough, often we like draw a line in the sand and it's like, okay, we're gonna make this transition usually around convention or some arbitrary date that we've selected to help the field, and it's that big bang gets us every time. Like I'm not a fan of like tearing off that band-aid. I like parallel systems. I'd like to migrate in a quiet fashion behind the scenes, because those big bangs are too hard on the field. There's too much change. There's too many unknowns when you migrate that system of those extra 1% use cases from a technology that you weren't planning on. They're going to get you, and it's going to be really painful for the field to migrate and manage that change, because we moved their cheese a lot. Like, we did this new interface, it looks awesome, so much better, the system's more stable. How do I get to my reports again? Oh yeah, it's over here now. Like, oh, I used to be able to shop this way and check out this way. Yeah, we stripped that down and made it easier. Like, it's too much. I think switching out the components one at a time and putting some lipstick on the pig on the front end, the UI UX, can go a long way of making a really crappy garbage platform that's slow and ugly feel a lot better. But I would tear down the components, replace them one at a time, and I think that minimizes. It's a longer way to do it, but it's safer.
Yeah. Not the big bang. Don't take the big bang approach. Yeah. No, I love that. Thank you for the insights on that. So for many of us, IT is this black box. We don't always understand the systems, the people, the language, the acronyms. Having led IT, what can we, as let's say the non-IT folk, every other function, what can we do to better understand and better support our IT departments?
Oh, so you caught on to like our secret power. We create a complicated web of jargon,
right? Yeah,
to push you off our scent. Like, well, we can't do that for you, Wayne, because we have to make some changes to the DNS, and then we got to make some other configuration changes on our EC2 blob. So it's going to take us at least 3 to 6 months to make those changes. And you're like,
and then I nod in agreement. Then I nod in agreement, like I totally understand, and then you catch me that I don't even know what you're saying because you made all of that up. So that's kind of what you do to me most meetings.
Most of the time, yeah. So all that technology soup that we just come up with random. No, I think from if I were on the outside looking at or trying to understand, like, I think it's trying to think through how we position that. I think a lot of that conversation, like, you're trying to understand how to better help IT departments. I think the better solution or the better way to interact with it. Sometimes I think a lot of the time, the tendency for business units is they have a problem, they define the problem, and they solve the problem. And then they come to the technology teams and they say, this is how I want to solve this. And then a lot of the times, like, we could either do it. There's a hidden complication that you weren't aware of. We're like, oh, we can't do it. And then it's like, you get bummed out because like, well, I had a good solution. How do we make this one work? And you're like, it can't do what you think it can do. Or it's going to take too long, or there's some other unknown in that space. So I think a lot of times the easier way is to come to the teams with a problem and try to let them solution out. Like, hey, we're having a hard time attracting new customers on the front end of the website. We're seeing not as much throughput through. What are the ideas that we can do to try and drive traffic through the website? And maybe that's too specific, but letting the technology teams have an opportunity to try and solve the business problems before the solution has been given to us. I think there's a lot of opportunity and synergy there where I think better crafted solutions can be generated, even if the high level, just in a grabbing whoever your IT person is in the brainstorming phase, especially in the sales teams when they're thinking about promos or they're thinking about future state. Just have that person come to your staffing and just listen. Most of the time they'll probably be bored out of their tree, but every now and then they're like, oh, actually, there's a new technology that does that for you, or I think we could probably just automate that for you. You're putting way too much effort in it, or they could boil down the problem like, oh, that's not actually how that works, because we understand the business rules because we had to program them. And you can add clarity into some of those conversations. So I think just probably getting closer to the IT department, getting to understand, let them participate in some of the business conversations at that staff meeting level.
I love that. I had never really thought of it that way. I think that's a really interesting insight, is really just coming to IT with an objective or a problem, not the solution. That really gives me a lot to think about. And I do agree with integrating IT into marketing or sales, those meeting events, initiatives, and vice versa. And again, that's something that I think you did really well. And I learned a lot from you with that great kind of leadership approach. And kind of on the leadership front, what do you think is one of the biggest lessons you've learned leading an IT group? It is an interesting, very complex, very cerebral, very analytical department, and it has to be. What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned from leading those systems and those teams?
Yeah, so I think leading the teams, I think some of the things that I have learned about leading them is that they have a lot more business sophistication. I think we often misunderstand. I think that because they've written a lot of the rules, because they understand the business at the logical level, right? We're flowing the orders. We know how the commissions are calculated. There's a lot more advanced knowledge in there. And so I think engaging in those conversations with the IT teams and making them feel like they're part of the solution, having those conversations with them, I think they want to win. I don't know a single IT department out there that wants to deliver a crappy code base and deliver a half-assed product. Like, they want to win and they're hungry for it. And so helping them orient to the business and understand what those goals are, I think getting them familiar with the market. Sometimes the IT departments lose track of what we're actually doing and who we're supporting. We get a little ingrained in the technology and how cool it is, and we forget, like, yeah, we're still running a business over here on the side too, and losing track of that stuff. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if I had like any really deep, insightful learnings there. Just
no, I think you did. Again, yeah, I think for me that what you said just gave me a lot to think about right now. My wheels are spinning, but probably haven't either exposed them to or felt that they understand the distributor as much as they probably do. I think you're right. I mean, they're literally looking at the zeros and the ones, and they understand those transactions, those behaviors, that journey in a way that I think sales and marketing will never fully understand. And so I think that's a really important insight, and kind of a great leadership lesson as well, is don't just assume, but really, I think people are going to be much more aware and cognizant of the larger picture than we give them credit for at times. So last question, Mike, then I'm going to let you off the hook here. So as you look down the road, like the next 3 to 5 years, which from a technology perspective is a long time, what changes do you see coming for direct selling? What are the biggest things that we absolutely have to be dealing with and prepare for today to set us up for tomorrow?
Yeah, I think if I were to kind of look at some attributes, I would say that adaptability and flexibility over the next 3 to 5 years are going to be our jam. I think that looking at our architecture and our platforms, we need to be adding those to our list of architectural design. Those are the top list, because we can't predict what's going to happen, and we need a level of flexibility in our platforms and our technology and our architecture that's going to allow us to adapt to whatever's coming our way, and we just have no idea how much the market's going to shift. I think there's like we just talked before, all those question marks about AI and how much it's going to influence or change our search experience and our shopping experience. If I can just chat to an AI and say, hey, go ahead and order these 3 products for me, that would be great. And then that's it. Like, I don't have to go to the website, I don't have to browse, I don't have to do anything, it's just done. Like that could be a huge shift in how we're interoperating with the internet. So I would focus a lot on building those flexible platforms and start thinking, if we're not thinking about flexibility now, where you're still locked into a legacy platform that's old and slow and moving slowly, it's going to get left behind pretty quick.
Absolutely. I think that's a perfect place to stop, because I think you just coined the mantra or the philosophy or the theme for the entire channel for the next 5 years: flexibility and adaptability. And I'm really excited to see the next 5 years for us here in direct selling. Mike, thank you for your leadership. Thanks personally. I've learned a lot from you, working with you. Love that our friendships continued. Thanks for all you continue to do to push IT forward and really make sure that it has a seat at the table here in direct selling. Give my best to your family, and thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Wayne. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in. We invite you to subscribe and tune in every other Thursday for timely insights and relevant takeaways to grow and advance your business. And don't forget to register today at dsu2023.com to join 400 of your peers in person for the annual DSN Global Celebration and DSU events April 18th through April 20th, 2023 in Frisco, Texas. Thank you for listening and supporting DSN and the Direct Approach Podcast.